Court rejects suit against President Tinubu over River State emergency rule. 24 passengers rescued, 14 bodies recovered, 42 others missing following boat accident in Kogi State. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar denies plan to step down for anyone ahead of 2027. On the foreign scene, Greater Manchester police says a suspect in synagogue killing identified. Good evening, this is news at 7 on Western Spring Television. My name is Olufemi Alagbe. Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court in Abuja has dismissed a suit challenging the Rivers State emergency rule. The suit filed by Belema Briggs and 4 others sought to challenge President Bola Tinubu's proclamation of the emergency. Justice Omotosho ruled that the plaintiffs lacked the legal standing to institute the case, explaining that such a case can only be determined by the Supreme Court. The court also noted that no plaintiff has the Attorney General's approval to initiate the case. The judge added that allegations of breach of fundamental rights could not stand because the president acted under the appropriate emergency rule order. The court concluded the case was frivolous and baseless, noting the plaintiffs did not obtain the consent of Rivers citizens before filing. President Tinubu declared a state of emergency in Rivers State in March. He suspended Governor Fubara, his deputy, and all state assembly members. President Tinubu ended the emergency on September 17, with Governor Fubara, his deputy, and the assembly members resuming duties the next day. Meanwhile, the Rivers State High Court in Port Harcourt has struck out a suit filed by members of the Local Government Service Commission. The Commission's chairman, Goldlife Ben, and 5 others challenged their removal by former sole administrator Ibokita Ibas. The claimants, appointed earlier by Governor Similai Fubara, asked the court to declare their removal unlawful and to order reinstatement. However, during today's sitting, their counsel, Kelechi Ubani, announced withdrawal of the case, calling it a painful but necessary decision. Ubani told the court the decision was made in the interest of peace and progress of Rivers State. Defense lawyers urged Justice Frank Oniyiri to dismiss the matter outright rather than strike it out, but the judge disagreed. Justice Oniyiri dismissed their objection as baseless, citing Order 25, Rule 1, which allows withdrawal of civil suits. The judge struck out the case without awarding costs and praised the claimant's withdrawal as a noble step towards reconciliation. In other developments, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, has reported that 24 passengers were rescued, 14 bodies recovered, and 42 people remain missing following a boat accident on the River Niger in Ibaji local government area, Kogi State. The NEMA, in a post shared on X this morning, said the incident occurred on Tuesday and involved a boat carrying about 80 passengers traveling from Onugwa community to Olushi village in Ibaji, local government area of Edo State. He noted that community divers are actively assisting official rescue teams, and the search and rescue operation is ongoing with updates to follow. The agency emphasized that the rescue efforts are being coordinated with the active participation of multiple agencies and stakeholders. Earlier reports had put the death toll at 26. The latest report from NEMA confirmed that 24 passengers were rescued, 14 bodies recovered, and 42 people remain missing. Meanwhile, the Kogi State Commissioner for Agriculture and Food Security, Timothy Ajoma, says search and rescue operations are ongoing.
And this is a flood season. The joint boat, as usual, trying to get to the Lushi market in Edo State to sell their food products and at the same time buy some items for the celebration. Fortunately, in the middle of the river, the boat had issue. The boat simply broke. And, about 80 occupants, 81, 82 occupants in that boat had to be scrambling for survival. I want to equally use this medium. As soon as this incident happened, distress calls were sent across, got to Niwa. Niwa has a station leader in Edo State. They responded promptly. Out of this number, 81, 82, over 46 survived. They were able to rescue them. And this survivor, I interviewed, I met with a victim who, by the special grace of God, Mr. Peter Osheje, who was in the boat with his wife and his son. The three of them survived. Met with him, I met with another victim, Mr. Peter Idapini Uku, who I personally interviewed, and I asked to be given first-hand information on what actually happened, and the Niwa that were on ground before we arrived. The incident was quite unfortunate. That never happened in the history of the state. Never pray, the history of a Baji local government, rather. Never pray that this kind of ugly incident happened again. Onugwa is a quiet village in Ayaward in a Baji local government with an inhabitant of barely over 1,000, losing almost 30 persons, young ones, and people at their prime. It's quite unfortunate, quite mono.
Turning to politics, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has dismissed reports suggesting that he intends to step down for another presidential aspirant ahead of the 2027 elections. In a statement issued by his media advisor Paul Ibe, Atiku described such claims as a misrepresentation of his recent interview with the BBC Hausa service. Ibe explains that a careful review of both the video and transcripts of the interview showed that Atiku never suggested or implied that he intends to step down for anyone. He noted that what the former vice president said was that young people, as well as other prospective presidential aspirants, are free to enter the contest, stressing that if a young candidate were to emerge through a competitive primary, he would support such a candidate without any hesitation. He said that the insinuation attributed to his principal from his interview are inaccurate and do not reflect what he actually said. Several media outlets had earlier reported that Atiku, in an interview with BBC Hausa, said he will withdraw from the 2027 presidential race if a young aspirant defeats him to clinch the African Democratic Congress presidential ticket. In the meantime, the European Union has called on the federal government to accelerate critical electoral reforms ahead of the 2027 general election, warning that delays could undermine democratic process. Members of the European Parliament and Chief of the EU Election Observation Follow-up Mission to Nigeria, Barry Andrews, delivered the warning during a meeting with the Independent National Electoral Commission in Abuja on Thursday. Andrews, who led the EU Election Observation Mission during the 2023 general election, said the bloc was delighted to return for a follow-up but flagged persistent issues. The EU official acknowledged improvements made by the electoral body, but noted that several of the recommendations from the 2023 EOM report remain unimplemented. He, however, emphasized that many of the recommendations require action by other entities in the executive, legislature, and the judiciary. In his remarks, INEC Chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu confirmed that only 8 of the 23 recommendations made by the EU in 2023 were directly addressed to the Commission. INEC Chair noted that action is being taken on cross-cutting recommendations while waiting for the conclusion of the ongoing legal review by the National Assembly. In Akwa Ibom State, security operatives today took over the People's Democratic Party Secretariat in the state to forestall any breakdown of law and order. The development followed claims and countered claims of the dissolution of a state working committee by the National Working Committee of the party. The National Publicity Secretary of PDP, Debo Lugwagba, dissolved the state exco and appointed a 31-member caretaker committee But the National Secretary of the party, Senator Samuel Nyawu, issued a counter-statement declaring there was no NWC meeting where such a decision was taken. Chairman of the PDP in Akwa Ibom State, Enyakang Akwan, described the purported sacking of his executive by the National Working Committee of the party as illegal. Speaking to the media, he declared that the state ESCOs is intact still, stating they will serve out the 4-year tenure which they were elected. Akwan appealed to party members, supporters, and the general public to disregard the false report and remain committed to the lawful leadership of the party in Akwa Ibom State. To health matters, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention (NCDC) today reported that Nigeria has recorded 166 deaths from Lassa fever from January 1 to September 14. Other case fatality rate now stands at 18.5%, higher than the 16.9% recorded during the same period in 2024. As an epidemiological week 37, Nigeria reported 7,673 suspected cases and 895 confirmed cases across 21 states and 106 local government areas, according to the NCDC in 2025. 21 states have been recorded at least one confirmed case across 106 local government areas. A significant majority of 90% of the confirmed cases were reported from 5 states: Ondo 33%, Bauchi 23%, Edo 18%, Taraba 13%, and Ebonyi 3%. The remaining 10% came from 16 other states. The report noted that no new healthcare worker was affected in the reporting week, and the number of suspected and confirmed cases decreased compared to the same period in 2024. The National Association of Resident Doctors, NARD, has said over 35% of Nigerian children under 5 years are affected by malnutrition, describing the menace as a critical public health challenge. In a post on X on Thursday, NARD said over 35% of children under 5 are affected. The association noted that malnutrition contributes significantly to child mortality and also impact cognitive development, disease susceptibility, and natural productivity. And NARD stated that interventions include ready-to-use therapeutic food distribution, community-based management of acute malnutrition, and infant and young child feeding counseling. It added that research shows the strategies significantly improve recovery rates and child survival. The body further urged support for sustainable nutritional programs to protect children's health nationwide. In Sokoto State, the state government has suspended the executive secretary of the State Primary Health Care Development Agency, Dr. Larai Aliyu Tambuwal, a suspension approved by Governor Ahmed Aliyu, who was conveyed in a letter dated October 2nd and signed by the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Health, Ibrahim Haliru Denyadi, on behalf of the Commissioner for Health. The letter stated that Dr. Williamino Sifawa will take over her office with immediate effect as acting executive secretary of the agency. The letter addressed to the special advisor on State Primary Health Care Development Agency further noted that the governor's approval was attached for official perusal and implementation. The reason for Tambuwal's suspension was not immediately stated in the correspondence, but the development marks a significant change in the leadership of the state's primary health care. In Osho, stakeholders have suggested possible solutions to the many challenges bedleveling the state's educational sector. In a panel hosted by the One House Development Initiative held yesterday, stakeholders aired their views, especially as it concerns persons living with disabilities. Isaac Aloba completes the report.
In the words of Nelson Mandela, education is the most powerful weapon which can change the world. This ideology is shared by the chairman, Osun State House of Assembly Committee on Innovation, Science and Technology, Honorable Adewumi Adeyemi, who explained that the state government is working to encourage science, technology, engineering and medicine, STEM, studies for people living with disabilities. Honorable Adeyemi made this known while speaking at an event themed Equitable Education, the Seed of National Development, held at the Press Center of the National Union of Journalists, Osun Council in Osogbo. The event, which was the third edition of the Independence Day debate, hosted by the One House Development Initiative, brought together key stakeholders in education and care of persons living with disabilities. While speaking, the lawmakers said the state had buttressed its stance towards STEM studies in Osogbo for all citizens, including those living with disabilities, by setting up, first off, free Wi-Fi in the state.
The Ministry of Innovation, Science and Technology has been invited because I oversee them as the chairman of the committee, and some of these steps has been discussed with us. So they are hoping that this 2026 budget that will be passed this year, for next year, it will take care of it, and steps will begin to be executed, as far as tech is concerned for people with disabilities. One of those steps, which is just primordial, is this Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi that I talk about, because you can't talk about tech without talking about internet. So that's just one of the first basic steps. Other steps in terms of equipping them with the basic gadget that they need will begin to follow. Steps like also training, will begin to follow in the coming year.
In an interview, the host, team lead of the One House Development Initiative, Tubosun Olabumi, explained that the government must implement initiatives to bring real change in the education of students with disabilities.
We carry the people along, the people at the grassroots, the people that are involved in this situation, so they bring you the information from their own realities. It's not that some people sit down in one corner of their rooms and just draft something out, then they bring out these policies, then it doesn't function for everybody. But basically rules, policies, and laws and acts that actually come from the people themselves so that they can own it and follow up with it. Number two is that after these policies and laws and acts are put into place, enforcement.
The desk officer, people living with disabilities, for the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps in Osun State, DSP Olarinu Rita, while speaking at the event, explained that while people living with disabilities are a part of the society, denial of basic rights like education from parents and schools is a crime. Meanwhile, a panelist, the executive secretary of the State Universal Basic Education Board, SUBEB, Osun Chapter, Alhaji Yahaya Bakari, explained that the state prioritizes inclusivity for people with disabilities with the provision of free school feeding, a smart school for students with disabilities, and a girls' school for alternative learning. While addressing issues facing the education sector, he asked parents of children in public schools whose schools demand more than the stipulated 500 naira to report the schools to SUBEB.
Locking your child at home, not making the child to have freedom or access to what is going on in the society, is a crime.
Just as we have recently the alternative school for girls that was commissioned by the wife of the president at Okedio, SUBEB has commenced academic activities at that school at Okedio, Sogodia. That school is specially meant for girls who are being denied of formal education.
The event rounded off with an adoption of resolutions, which included a more rigorous protection of the rights of those living with disabilities. The One House Development Initiative is a non-governmental organization which focuses on quality education and the growth of young ones. It is hoped that such panels and discussions can effect real change in the Nigerian polity. Isaac Aloba, Western Spring Television News.
Thank you, Isaac. Elsewhere, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Wike, has warned the saboteurs who vandalize government properties to desist from such acts. The minister gave the warning during the flag-off installation of integrated solar lighting in Abuja, the nation's capital. He further cautioned those who buy and resell looted government properties that it will not be business as usual again.
Another sabotage will come from the criminals. Another sabotage will come from the criminals. Criminals who now believe that it will be difficult for them to go and steal cables. It will be difficult for them to vandalize the poles, because now there will be security features. They will know it will no longer be easy. It will no longer be business as usual. So they will have their own style of campaign. Let me assure everybody that security agencies will work in synergy with the companies to make sure that this project is being protected. Another area of attack will be those who normally buy these poles. When they vandalize them, they go and sell to them. They come and resell. It is no longer going to be business as usual. So you will also see attack from that area. You will also see attack from the staff of that city, where these files are coming from, where money is being paid, no money will be paid again. And so they will embarrass me. They will go and tell their people, go on strike, that they have not paid them for several months. Sorry. There's nothing like that.
You're watching News at 7 on Western Spring Television. Still to come. The Lagos State Government defends demolition of buildings at Trade Fair Complex. We'll bring you more on this story.